Okay, I'm going to open up the meeting. It is 6:03. Per Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order to suspend the provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order limiting the number of people that can gather, this meeting is being conducted via remote participation. The Governor said, although no public will be allowed to attend, every effort should be made to ensure that everyone has access to the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on cable channel 9 and will be uploaded to YouTube. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? My flag's right outside. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America
of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chairman,
Can we remain standing for
Mr. Chairman, while we're
moment of
standing,
silence? Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, while we're standing, I would like to mention the following names of individuals who have passed since our last meeting. Everett Kurt Jr., Susan Morrissey, Eileen Monis, Alice Napinski, Lois Dillingham, Albert de Bonaventura, and I also mentioned my brother-in-law, Francis Rose of Berkeley, because Frank worked for Algonquin Gas, which became Duke Energy, and knew a lot of people in Dayton. In their memory, I would ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have Alice joining us on the phone in my office, and she's like right next to the speaker. So.
Okay. So we have a scheduled appointment with Alice Souza and Sheila New, and we're going to discuss further suspended primetime services during COVID-19 pandemic. Who wants to begin this conversation?
I can begin this very briefly. So I know Sheila. So sadly, we had been approached by some of the part-time workers at primetime, which you have generously voted to continue paying during the COVID pandemic. Generally, they're paid out of the revolving fund that is client paid for. And it's sort of like an enterprise fund in that way. And they will receive more with this added benefit from the federal government of $600 a week, and where we really don't have a lot of information on when we might be able to reopen that program. The conversation has turned to whether or not we should consider laying off the workers of that program.
Does Alice have any?
I'm not sure what's happening here, but I think that if the people that are working for me right now, this is Alice, by the way, right now, if they are getting their paycheck weekly, then I think that until this ends up, then they can go on to the unemployment benefits. That's what I believe.
Thank you, Alice. I think everyone heard you. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone got you, Alice. Thank you. Keep with me. Stay with me.
Okay.
So if they do get laid off, we're still going to take care of their benefits as far as health insurance, stuff like that. Am I correct?
I believe so. I believe that well, I'm not actually sure about that. I think they would have to end up paying their share, but it's basically separating from employment. Oh, I'm confusing furlough. I'm sorry. Furlough, they pay their share. Laying off is unemployment, and it's like separation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think that's one of my major concerns as well. My first concern is we've had a similar situation at my full-time job, and the company made sure to furlough those people, mostly because we wanted them to be able to keep their benefits, even though obviously they won't be having a paycheck through the company. So that's my primary concern. My other concern is, are we sure that anyone who would potentially be furloughed, I'm just using the word furloughed now, would be making a commensurate amount on unemployment? Like, are we sure of that? I just want to make sure before we move in any direction that we're taking care of the people that have taken care of their clients and thus, you know, the town.
I agree.
Say it again.
This is Alice again. These people work part-time, so they don't have any benefits. If they don't work, they don't get paid. So they have been getting paid, though, because this program that we've been on, and they should be getting a pay every week. I'm not sure what else is happening, but there could be some other problems in with this, but they all work part-time. None of them work full-time. The only ones that work full-time is Sheila, Della, and myself. The rest of them are not. They're part-timers.
How many people are we talking about?
There's probably 7 or 8, because there's 10 of us all together. We're counting me, Sheila, and Bella. So there's probably 6 or 7. I'm not sure exactly.
And none of them get any kind of benefits because they work less than 20 hours?
That's right.
Are they all paid out of the prime time account?
That's what they've been getting paid from, yes.
Also on furloughing, you have to bring them back within 6 months. And they don't get paid. At least on laying off and unemployment, they're collecting something.
So, Madam Administrator, are you sort of tacitly recommending a layoff for that particular subset of employees? Those are my words, not
I mean, unfortunately I am, because it's a better economic situation for the employee to be laid off in this situation than furloughed. And we cannot promise that we're bringing anybody back in 6 months, only because we're in the middle of this. It's a downward trend. That's great, but it might not happen. It might not continue. If we have that second wave, then this is just exacerbated. So there's, unfortunately, again, so many unknowns that we're trying to make the best decision for everybody with the limited information that we have. And so I think the quote unquote safest thing to do is to lay off this group of employees, allow them to collect. They get the added $600 from the federal government that they added. So it's a good situation for them in that sense. And we don't know when we can bring this program back. So to me, I would recommend laying off over furlough.
And point of clarification, 6, the rehiring, if they were to be furloughed and not laid off, the rehiring happens 6 months after the program reopens, or 6 months from when they were furloughed?
If you furlough somebody, you have 6 months to kind of tell them what's going on, you know, and coming back. Generally, the furlough is, we have an issue now, we believe we're coming out of it, and, you know, in 6 months, we're gonna be fine, or within 6 months. It's generally not this long of a period. Usually I've heard of like week furloughs. Oh, everybody takes 1 week furlough to help the budget total. You know, that's all employees. In this situation where it's a sort of an enterprise fund system that pays for a service, and we're extending the benefit to these part-time group, this 7 people, I think Bella said it, 7, paying out of town coffers. It's a situation we need to handle. We need to go forward. And I will also say I'm sorry, Selectman Goulart, just the extension of daycares being closed alone to June 29th. I don't have hope that anything else would be open. And this is my personal belief. I don't have hope that anything else would be open before then, because how do you unleash the workforce when they have children at home with no place to bring them? That's my thought from the governor. They're supposed to bring in some more information later this week, probably on Friday, as has been their MO, I guess, about what else is happening. I'm sorry, Selectman Goulart.
I think laying them off is a better option. The town will have some unemployment benefits to pay, but it won't be the full amount that they're being paid right now. The fact that they will get the $600 a week on top of unemployment, they're going to be making more money being laid off than they would if they continued to work. And since there are no benefits to lose, this is a better option. And we don't know how long the layoff's going to happen. My other thought is, I don't want to be doom and gloom, during this period of layoff, during this period of the program being closed, quite frankly, we don't know how many of those clients will be available to return for services. I think in looking at this whole thing, the immediate concern are those employees. Yes, so I agree, layoff plus the 600 that the government's providing is a better route for them. I think in the long term, we're going to be looking at the entire program simply because of this virus, whether or not we will have clients returning, whether or not there's going to be another round of this coming back in the fall. And so I do support what you're recommending. I would ask, Mr. Ferry, are you online? Would you like to say something from the Council on Aging? Have they discussed it or give us your opinion?
The board had met earlier in March. We did close indefinitely based on the government and the local Board of Health and the CDC. It was closed indefinitely until we have good assurity for the safety of our clients and staff. I do have a question for Alice that might help this conversation also. So when we're talking layoffs, obviously that's a part-timers.
He hasn't finished. I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
So what layoffs are we talking about? Are we talking about some of the part-timers or all the full-timers also?
No, the full-timers are okay, because that's me and Bella and Sheila. There's nobody else that works full-time. They're all part-timers.
Correct, but the program suspended, so that's Sheila and part of you and part of Bella, correct?
Yes, but we're working with the people too, because we're calling them at home and seeing if they're doing okay and if there's any needs that they need to be done. I'm sure Sheila's been doing that. And if she's there, she can verify that.
Yes, I have been doing that. I've been calling them weekly. I've also sending out the calendar for next month, thinking and hoping that we would be back before the end of May. I'm also giving them things to do at home as far as on the internet, and I've made up some crossword puzzles and some word searches with primetime words and names on it, and send those out so we can always be on their mind. And I have spoken to a lot of the family members as well, and they are anxious for us to reopen because it's really, one in particular was saying that they see a decline in their mom already because there's not a lot of interaction in her life. And I know it's true for more than one of the clients. So I would love to see it start up again as soon as possible for their sake. And I was wondering also if, I know the governor said about daycares until the end of June, but I'm sure they're talking about children. Would we come under that as well? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to seek, and I can seek clarification on that. And I think the guidance would come down. It is a town program, and similar to libraries, we, the town, get to decide how we reopen. So I would assume it's not that it's mostly for private, and that it was intended about children, because he made the announcement the same time as he was discussing school closures. So yeah. I would assume that it was specifically children. I will certainly find that out. But the meaning behind my comment was that if they're parents and they have to be there for their children, they can't go to work without that infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
is there any further discussion on this?
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we vote to lay off the part-time employees at prime time due to the closure of the program because of the virus.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it.
I would just comment, Alice and Sheila and Tom, whatever the town can do to assist these individuals to get their claims open, as soon as they can, file the paperwork, and the town will process information to get it back so that there won't be a large gap between their last check from the town and their money coming in from unemployment and that federal money.
Excuse me.
Who would this, I'm sorry, this is Alice. Who would they see at the town hall, Mary?
Or
Excuse
me. Alice was asking who they would contact at town
Okay.
hall. It could be myself or the treasurer collector, Mary Hathaway.
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe they're kind of fast tracking these as long as they fill out their applications correctly, as in they don't hit a certain box. That's what I've heard, that there's an issue. And that they answer the phone call. This is important, Sheila, if you want to pass this on. They have to answer the phone call from unemployment, and it comes up as an unrecognizable number. So sometimes because of spam and such, people are not willing to answer that. If they don't answer, it goes into a hold pile and you will not be processed very quickly. And I've heard, it's a rumor, but I've heard they're not answering the phone if you call back. So they have to just, and this is for anybody who may be watching that is trying to go on unemployment, you have to answer that phone call or you'll be placed in a holding pile.
I have a
I should have
question.
asked,
Would there,
I have a question. I have a question first, though. When is this effective? Now, we didn't, in the motion, we didn't pick a date, so is it effective
that was my
today? So,
It
So-
would be, so I'm thinking that they're being paid for the work this week, and then they would file on Sunday.
so should we have a motion saying when this becomes effective? Because right now, we voted to lay them off. And we
Mr.
didn't pick a
Chairman?
time. Yes,
Mr.
Mrs.
Chairman,
Goulart.
move to amend, and that the amendment, Mrs. Brady, will be effective the week ending April 25th.
Is there a second on that amendment?
Yes.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Okay, that's the vote on the amendment. Now call a vote
Yeah.
on the motion as amended.
I'll ask for a vote on the motion in the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. That was effective April 25th, you said, Mrs. Goulart?
Week ending April 25th, which is the end of this week.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So does that mean they're not being paid for this week and they can file? Or
No.
are they being paid this
The
week?
the check they get tomorrow is the week that ended last Saturday, and there will be one check next week, Thursday, which ends the 25th.
But starting April 26th, they're,
Yes,
They're
yes.
laid off.
thank you. All right, Sheila, I'll be speaking with you tomorrow. We'll draft a letter to those folks and get going with that.
Happy birthday, Alice.
happy birthday, Alice.
She's saying thank you.
Happy birthday, Alice.
Happy birthday, Alice.
Have a party.
Thank you, Sheila, Lavella. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, announcements. The rabies vaccination day has been rescheduled to June 27th at 2 p.m. The town elections have been rescheduled to Saturday, June 6, 2020. The town meeting, the annual town meeting has been rescheduled to Monday, June 15th, 2020. Center Street will be closed on April 20th between the Berkeley-Dyton Bridge and Route 138 due to the Bristol Aggie construction project. Phase 2 of the waterline replacement work is being performed at Bristol County Agricultural School is scheduled to begin. The Board of Selectmen have voted at the recommendation of the Highway Superintendent to allow the closure of Center Street from Route 138 to Berkeley Town Line. This work will take place beginning April 20th and extend through May 8th, 2020, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. Because of the current stay-at-home orders, the work originally scheduled for the summer months can be performed at this time with minimal impact on school days and traffic conditions. The road will be open to local traffic and emergency vehicles only. Please seek alternate routes. Thank you for your patience and cooperation during this time.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
time will back. Yes,
I just wanted to, I'm sorry. Were you done with reading the announcement? I don't have it up. I apologize.
no, I'm not.
sorry. I was just going to
Okay.
say I did receive feedback regarding the time of the closure. Apparently 7 a.m. is a little cumbersome for residents who might have to commute to work. So perhaps the board going forward, we might think about like the time, like peak traffic hours for people commuting. That's all I wanted to add. I was unaware. Someone had reached out, and I thanked them because I, wasn't aware of that until they pointed that out.
Yeah, this is a special time because of the pandemic and a lot of people aren't working. So this is really a slow period of a lot of the workers, but I do understand those that are going to work 4/7, the road may be closed for them.
Yep.
Continuing with the announcements, the Town of Dayton's food bank distribution will be held next on May 16, 2020, located in the Town Hall lower level as a drive-through, and I believe that's at 8 a.m. And effective April 1st, 2020, the Town of Dayton will no longer accept contaminants in single-stream recycling bins. Town administrators reports.
All right, I had muted myself, I'm sorry. So you have in your packets before you a memo from me regarding the local option to extend due dates for property tax bills. We discussed this previously at our other meeting. Selectman Goulart had raised some good instrumental concerns really about pushing this back too late and managing our cash flow. So far, cash flow is okay. So I think people listened to your request, Selectman Goulart, about if they were able to pay on time.
I paid mine today.
So thank you for all of those who have paid. We appreciate it. So you have the ability to extend the due date no later than June 1st, number one. Number two, you also have the ability to waive any penalties or interest until June 30th, 29th, 2020. Everything has to be, the legislation says before June 30th, so you can't waive anything on June 30th. So I do recommend, and I did consult the treasurer collector, she's in agreement, that you choose any date in between, if you so choose to delay and extend the due dates, any date between May 15th and June 1st, and that if you do that, that you waive the interest and penalties until June 29th, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we we extend the due date for the payment of real estate taxes to June the 1st, and that we waive penalties and interest on those taxes until June 29th, 2020 is recommended.
Second.
Discussion? I support it. I support this given the situation that we're in. Some people are unemployed, some people aren't getting paychecks, so this will give them a little bit of a break.
Mm-hmm.
Not that much. Taxes will still be due, but a little bit of a break, so I support it. Dr. Z, you were going to say something?
You took the words right out of my mouth, honestly. I feel the exact same way, and I just wanted to thank our town treasurer / collector and our town administrator for discussing it and coming to what I consider to be, a thoughtful, compassionate way to approach the current situation we're in. So I appreciate that.
I would also suggest to residents that if you are having difficulty paying your taxes, number one, you're not alone. And number two, if you anticipate you're not going to be able to make the deadline or pay them in total, I would suggest you contact Mrs. Hathaway, the tax collector, so she's aware of your circumstances. We want to help you. Obviously, we need the income to operate the town, but again, you're not alone, and like they're telling everybody about mortgages and things, loans, contact your bank. So I'm just suggesting you contact Mrs. Hathaway if you have concerns about whether or not you're going to be able to, meet these deadlines.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
So some happy news in these times. We were, first thanks to Bill Napolitano, who is always a big friend to Dayton. We were approached by the Nature Conservancy about going in jointly with the town of Bridgewater and the Nature Conservancy for a grant. It's the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, so it's the federal funds for coastal resiliency. And we have agreed to do that. We're requesting $400,000 so that we can repair, reconstruct the Briggs Street culvert, which I feel like I've been talking about since I got here. But anyway, so all the engineering and permitting has been completed. We did that on a grant through the Division of Ecological Resources through the Massachusetts government. And this sort of fell in our laps happily. So we are shovel ready. So we sent everything in, they've applied on our behalf. And so that's just sort of on the back burner waiting to be approved, and it's in process. In the meantime, I will be applying to the DER for our match requirement through that grant. So the hope is that we are successful in getting that grant through DER for this new round, and we use those funds to be the match with the federal funds, and then we don't have to ask the town to pay for this. My plan C is to go to the town for town meeting for these funds. I don't want to do that, not in this climate. I want to be able to finish this job through total grants. And so that is the plan right now. I'm working on that DER grant, and I'll be sending it over to Mr. Ferry to make sure I have all the ecology correct. And we'll be sending that along. The due date is in May, so that's coming up.
Madam Administrator?
Yes.
I assume that you and Mr. Napolitano are working with like a liaison or someone at or with the Nature Conservancy?
Yes, so in a conversation, Bill suggested to this woman, her name is Sarah Burns.
Yeah,
Hey,
okay. So thank you so much. Okay, so Selectman Goulart, I don't know if you recall, Mrs. Burns had reached out to us via email. I met her at a climate change and hazard mitigation meeting. And I guess what I want the take home to be for people watching is that that's why all the selectmen go to these various different meetings, MMA and all the other SERPID. We do that because of the contacts and the connections that you can make. So I just think this is absolutely fabulous. And yet again, Mr. Napolitano has come through. Madam Administrator, may I ask you one more question on this?
Of course.
Yes. Did Mr. Napolitano ever bring up or introduce us to anyone from the Mass Audubon Society as well?
Hey, Brett, excuse me, Dr. Z.
Mm-hmm.
I'm chuckling because, yes, I remember Sarah Byrne, and I'm embarrassed to say that I mix her up with Nature Conservancy and Audubon. Now, the Audubon,
it's similar work.
because of the fact that I haven't been able to have a stormwater meeting, we're working with a person, a stormwater committee is working with a person from the Audubon Society on bylaws and things. And so certainly whether or not this person would be the contact or not, but the town does have a connection to Audubon.
Nice.
And I will look that name up and get it to Mrs. Ehrenstein, so that, you know, if we don't have another name, at least we've got one to start with.
Fabulous, thank you.
Wenley Ferguson from Save the Bay had written a letter of support for this Nature Conservancy grant as well, so I know they're involved. And Sarah Burns, we're throwing a ton of names out. Sarah from the Nature Conservancy is on another lead that could also serve as our match fund. So she's working on that too. So Bill has certainly linked us up with some key people that can truly help us. And I'm thankful for that.
Fabulous.
Very good. Also some good news on our grant. So the pandemic has not slowed our ADA transition plan progress at all. So I gave you something in your packets that gives a little update on all of the grants we have in the works right now, a lot of irons in the fire. But even the ADA one actually has some more updates. We received the department surveys from our vendor that's doing this with us. I've sent those out. We have had some departments send them back already, so thank you to those departments who have. I filled out mine. I had the HR one and a town administration one. I sent one to, sorry about that, I'm getting a call. I sent one over to Selectman Pacheco, but if you want me to fill that out, just let me know. I just showed you that it was there. So that's like really aggressively getting a lot of traction. And so we are very much on pace to meet our deadline, which is a happy thing to report. And then what was that?
Can I ask you a question about the grant updates that you included?
Right.
Just quickly about green communities, it says LED lighting. Mr. Aguirre, the building commissioner, probably back in 2017 installed something like 500 LED bulbs in various buildings, Old Town Hall, and Prime Time. Is there any more work that needs to be done on that? I thought he did he pretty much did a lot of it then. So is there more to do with that?
There are more lights to be changed out. However, most of the work is actually updating and upgrading the ballasts for each of those lights because they weren't designed for LED lighting, and so they're not going up to speed, I guess, as they should be. So that's what part of the scope will end up being.
Okay.
Is updating those ballasts as well.
Thank
and
you.
it'll be a bulk of the money because they're more expensive than the LED light bulbs.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. I lost my agenda. And then the next one is scheduling an executive session. There are, I'll say, 2.5 contracts that are up in the air right now. And so we just need to schedule an executive session with these folks. I verified that we're able to do this through Zoom. It's called a breakout session. It won't be recorded. It's not available for public inspection, but we would be doing something like this, and the participant would come in, maybe the executive session participant come in just like this, but it wouldn't be on cable. It wouldn't be uploaded. And they're called in Zoom language, it's called a breakout room. So I'm just looking for a date to schedule that. I don't want to wait until our next meeting. However, I will, obviously, if that's the flavor of the board. Our next meeting is mid-May, and I'd like to be able to wrap this up so that the Finance Committee can work with real numbers as they go forward. Lord knows their job is hard enough with what we're facing now. So I want to be able to give them as much information as we can. And I didn't know if you'd be willing to have a special session just to do that. You'd open up publicly and then go into the breakout, and the public part, just like normal, just how we normally do it, but that would be edited. That would be filmed, and then we'd go into executive session without any filming.
So could we do it during the day?
I can.
I mean, it just seems like we're all around in some fashion.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, did you have a specific date in mind? Is waiting until next Wednesday? I'm working from home, so I really can do anything within a 48-hour posting notice, basically.
Me too.
So the soonest we could do it is the 28th. I'm certainly available on Wednesday, the 29th, and I'll work around you. I can easily work around you.
During the day on the 28th, or the morning or afternoon would be good, because that's supposed to be the DR budget hearing, so I don't want to do it in the evening.
Okay.
I'm going to default to you, Mr. Chairman, because I'm pretty open.
So am I.
So am I. So whatever's best for everybody.
Wonderful. And so since it's a work day, the other 2 people should be around theoretically. So you said morning, Selectman Goulart?
Morning or afternoon. I just don't want to be in the evening because of the DR if it's going to be held.
Is 11 o'clock okay?
11 a.m. on April the
28th.
28th.
I mean, is that a pain because it's in the middle of the day? I mean, it's so hard. I don't know what people have planned during quarantine time.
It's okay with me.
That's fine.
Mallory.
Earlier is better for
Okay.
me, but it doesn't matter.
You wanna
Mallory,
go to
don't we
10
have-
a.m.?
Mallory, don't we have a meeting on the 28th with the Mass Library construction? Is that the 28th?
Oh, so I'm not going to that one. So I didn't put that on my calendar. I apologize.
Okay, so I am. That's a Zoom meeting also, so I won't be available. I believe it's 28th in the morning.
So maybe
What about-
afternoon, Mr. Chairman?
What about 1 p.m.?
1 p.m. So
That's perfect. That's my work lunch. Let's do a working lunch. May I ask a question about the potential, I know we can't discuss too much, the potential agenda. Madam Administrator, are there already issues and employees that you're thinking we might need to come in for the meeting to discuss something?
It would only be, so there's 3 contracts that you have up right now. It would be only those, police chief, fire chief. And I say 2.5 because I was essentially handled.
Okay.
last. So
Okay, good. Okay, just making sure we don't miss anything. That's all. Perfect. Okay. I should have already known you had all the ducks in a row.
It was a very productive hour between meetings.
Yeah.
So the 28th at 1 p.m. I will, Karen, if you and I can test the breakout room before that, that'd be great. We'll post a meeting tomorrow. We'll have to post that meeting tomorrow. So we'll organize with the chief
Okay.
and take care of that. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
And then
Okay, so
just to recap.
my meeting is,
I'm sorry.
yeah, my meeting is on April 28th is 10 to noon. So we're going to do it at 1 o'clock. That's fine.
Are you sure, Mr.? Is that okay? Or do you want to do two? I really am free all day.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about Mrs. Goulart's schedule, so I don't want to get too close to her meeting. So 1 o'clock
No,
is
no,
fine.
the DR thing is at 6:30 and it's going to be online.
So why don't we do 2 o'clock? Is that okay?
Yep.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
No,
No votes necessary.
April 28th at 2 p.m. We'll have a public meeting, open up, and then we'll go into executive.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Going back to the town administrator's report, we were talking about green communities. You get anything on hazard mitigation and complete streets?
Oh,
It's
I'm
on-
sorry. I didn't talk about that. So
I'm sorry.
because of these, the pandemic and limits on us getting together, the core team was supposed to have met again. Well, let me back up. MVP is basically wrapped up and handled. We've submitted that to MEMA for their approval, for them to review it. We're going to be using that to apply for an action grant, and we're focusing on studying the Sagregansett River, which really coincides with our Briggs Street culvert, our culvert management, and everything that we've been kind of working through for that. So we're having a meeting, we're scheduling a meeting with our engineers on that, either for next week or tomorrow. So MVP is basically all set. Hazard mitigation involved a few more points of review. We were supposed to have our core team meeting, and unfortunately we couldn't. So I worked with Jamie, organizing all of there are about 40 to 43 projects, and I went through, assigned which department would handle those, potential partners for those like Serpent or Mass DOT, et cetera, and then also funding opportunities and priority. You know, priority by like timeline, when we would anticipate doing these projects. So I went through that with Jamie. She compiled a neat package. She sent it over, and then we have emailed that this week to the core team for their review and input. And we're scheduling a meeting, which will probably take place next week, to go over those. And then she'll use that information and submit our hazard mitigation plan. So that will be all up and running. The approval process for the hazard mitigation takes a little bit longer than the MVP. But the good news is we have the MVP grant action thing all set and ready to go. So we're not really concerned about waiting for hazard mitigation.
Can I ask you a follow-up question just in general, Madam Administrator?
Yes.
I know you don't have a specific figure off the top of your head. I'm curious to know, how much do you, like, of your professional working time do you think grants are taking up? And I know they're a good thing. It's like a good problem to have. I'm just curious because I know we have a lot of different grant balls in the air, so to speak, that you're juggling. So I just am curious to know.
So the ADA grant right now is a big focal point because it's a lot to coordinate, and it's hard because I can't push everybody together. It's a lot of separate conversations or separate emails, and then they come in at separate times. So you can't have a meeting. The value of a meeting, you know, that saying, oh, this meeting could have been an email. Well, I'm like, oh, this email should have been a meeting, kind of thing. So I'm spending a lot of time on ADA. MVP, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by the bigger group, which was fantastic. I loved it. And then our engineering firm. So it really depends on the grant, but there are a lot of deliverables. There are a lot of deadlines to meet, and every grant is different with their reporting requirements. For example, MVP and green communities are quarterly, ADA is monthly. So having like Karen help me considerably with green communities. So having people to help me do that is very important. But right now I just use my whiteboard and force myself to keep the deadlines and try to keep track as I go, but it comes in waves. Right now, it's a lot because the due date. Right now, I do a lot about them.
Okay, and just to double check, like Serpid is going to help us with things like the Green Communities reports, and so we won't be quote unquote on the hook, so to speak, for all of that typing and the comprising all the data and all that, right?
Right, correct. Mine is, so the quarterly report for Green Communities is like, okay, this is the project we're working on. This is how much it cost. This is the progress we've made on these side things. These are the rebates we got from National Grid, just so they can keep track of progress. They want to see that the towns are getting these monies and that they're actually doing something with it. And that's statewide. That's not just DOER. And you have responsibilities when you get these grants. You have to tell them that you're actually using them in the way that you said you're going to use them, and then on time. And we do that because we like the grants coming. So we want to be good little grant recipients.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Administrator.
Oh, wait a
Old
minute.
business.
Wait a minute. One more, Mallory, Mrs. Aaron.
I like it. It's good.
Complete streets.
So again, this is a bit of a silver lining with this pandemic. We can schedule our construction work earlier than normal. So we actually have until October to finish our complete streets. So we are not on such a time crunch with them. The other two, the ADA and the hazard mitigation municipal vulnerabilities, those are due by June 30th. But because of people aren't like traveling and commuting to work, they're working remotely. We have a lull in traffic, a natural lull in traffic. So I believe Mr. Ferry's still on this phone call, but we're trying to see if we can move up the schedule for that. And we can put these in motion sooner rather than later. And if you want to speak, Tom, you can give us, I don't know if he's there, his screen's black, but I'll let him speak to that. But we have discussed moving the schedule up to take advantage of this lull right now and have less of an impact negatively.
Correct. Lucia, you're still there?
Oh,
right?
you're there.
Here.
We can hear you.
Yeah, so we're in the middle of sweeping our roads and cleaning our basins. Probably get another 3 weeks of that, and after that, we're going to jump right on we have to do some drainage upgrades prior to those projects, and then after that, we can get on their schedule. Tentatively, they're scheduled to do that, the physical work in July, but as you alluded to, with the virus and whatnot, other people's schedules are going to fall through, and we may be able to get them sooner. But tentatively, they're coming July, and I need to get that work done before them anyways.
Thank you.
Mr. Ferry, would you just thank the highway personnel for the good job on the street sweeping? They did an excellent job, and I know we've had a few windy days the last few weeks, and it really goes a long way. So I just really appreciate it. So just if you could let everybody know, it's appreciated.
I will. Thank you.
Mr. Ferry, also, I've had a lot of good comments from people who were very, very happy at the fast response during that hurricane we had a week ago when all those trees fell down, and it was so quick in getting everything cleaned up. Kudos to both the highway department and public safety.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Old business. Update on coronavirus response. I have a report. Today, we have 20 confirmed COVID-19 cases in town. Their progress is being monitored by a town nurse. They need to know that we're thinking of them. On March 16th, as a reminder, the Board of Selectmen voted on a declaration of emergency for Dayton to close town hall to the public, keeping only essential workers and allowing other workers to work remotely, and instituted a spending freeze on discretionary spending. Our library and prime time are closed until further notice. Again, the Board of Selectmen would like to thank our first responders, Board of Health, our town nurse, the Highway Department, our teachers and staff, and all of our dedicated town employees during this difficult time. Many are risking their health in order to provide you with the necessary services to keep you safe. There are many essential workers who are not given the chance to stay home during this pandemic. The truckers, the farmers, retail workers, nursing home staff, medical workers, and so many more. We want to thank you for all you're doing to help our citizens get through this, and to the parents and grandparents that are educating our future leaders, we want to give you a special thanks. As we approach Mother's Day, our thought goes to that special person in our lives. For those of us whose moms are still with us, it is difficult to not be with them on their special day. To all the mothers who will not see their children and grandchildren on Mother's Day, please know we are thinking of you, and we look forward to you seeing them in person when it's safe to do so. Please continue to practice social distancing, washing your hands often. If you have to go out, please wear a mask. No one knows how long this will last. We need to be patient, and we need to let the scientists and medical professionals guide us through this. And as stated before, we are all in this together. We are Dighton strong. Keep yourself, your families, and your elderly neighbors safe. When this is over, we will meet and celebrate together. And be safe, and thank you. Next item is to finalize the expiration for additional vacation coverage carryover. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Round it up. I'm sorry. I really rely on visual cues. So we had talked about this. The decision was made to allow the carryover. However, we didn't make a decision on when it would expire. There was a question about vacation time being an earned benefit and whether or not it could expire. And so my research has shown that if you develop vacation time, if you earn vacation time under a policy or some rules, and those rules state that your vacation time expires at such and such a time, then it does expire. In this special circumstance, we're considering elongating that period or extending the expiration date for an additional year. And then we can, people can spread out their vacation time because it does renew July 1. So I am still recommending the expiration of, or the ability for employees to carry over their vacation time from FY20 into 21 with no cap or limit, that whatever they have left they can, and that they be able to, either they have to use that vacation time by July 30th, 2021. June 30th, 2021, sorry.
Okay, and that all depends on the circumstances, right? That if the pandemic continues for a longer period of time, we can readdress this, I guess. But I'm okay with it.
My backup
I'm
plan.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My
No.
backup plan is if we have a fall town meeting, we would know our free cash and we would put some aside to be able to pay people out for that vacation time if this continues. So those are things I'm considering depending on the situation.
Mr. Chairman?
May I
Yes.
ask a question first before we make a motion? And I support it. I just want to
I'm not gonna make a motion.
I'm sorry, Selectman Goulart.
I followed a lot of communications with everybody regarding the financial condition of the state. Concerns about state aid to education, revenues not meeting their targets. You've seen them all. You've read it all. I'm proposing that we give employees an option to either be paid for all unused vacation by June 30th of this year, if they can't take any, or they can have an option to carry it over with the understanding if they decide to carry it over and this virus thing continues, there's a chance they could lose it. I am very hesitant about carrying an unfunded liability per se into the next fiscal year. If it were my druthers, I would just assume whoever has a vacation on the books as of June 30th, pay them off. The other thing we don't know of, we've talked about financial constraints and difficulties and unemployment. We may have employees whose spouses laid off, or there's other circumstances that we're not aware of. And I think we ought to say to them, if you want the money, we can pay it by the last payroll in June. Understand, that's it. You start fresh on July the 1st. There won't be other carryovers. Like I say, this whole financial thing and the information I'm getting, I had a online conversation with a selectman today from Wareham, and you know, we've been talking about this stuff. I'm really concerned about where we're going to be. So I just offer this as, for a discussion item, offer the opportunity to pay them all off by June 30th. If they can't use even a day between now and then, calculate the dollars. We can get that from town accountant and the town treasurer and clear it off the books and let's start fresh.
May I, my, I guess, logistical concern would be, I actually don't have an issue with it being carried over because obviously who's really going to want to take a vacation right now when everything is shut down? I understand that. I guess my question is, what happens to the department? Let's say someone didn't get a chance to take any vacation. I mean, this virus has pretty much been with us all of 2020. And my concern would be, how will a department head deal with someone having now double potentially their vacation time? What if someone wants to go on a 4-week vacation? I mean, how are we as a town gonna confront those just logistical, like, and then we don't have lack of coverage and just those are also potential issues that I can see from this. And maybe I'm wrong.
I agree with you. It is a departmental management issue. And I think we only got one department head still with us, but, and certainly if he wanted to offer an opinion, that is a major concern. We all agreed we don't want employees to lose anything, so we were going to let them carry it over. We had the discussion about whether or not use it or lose it. We talked about that. As I said, the reason I'm raising this issue now is if we don't pay it off by the end of June and we allow them to carry it over, that means our free cash will have a higher number in it come June 30th. But in all honesty, that's an inflated free cash number because there is that vacation liability. Now, if they take it during the calendar year, well, it's like the money's in the next budget. I have real concerns about funding the FY21 budget. That's why I even brought this up. I'm that concerned about funding FY21 and relying on at least the same amount of state aid that we got this year.
Well, my concern is do we have the money to pay them all? Because now they're not able to take the vacation because they got no place to go, so they're not taking the vacation. So a lot more people would be taking money instead of taking carrying the time over. So do we have in this fiscal year budget the monies to pay them for the vacation time? Because it's going to be higher than a normal year because people haven't had the opportunity to take their vacation time.
Right, and that's
So
why I said,
that would be my concern.
right, and that's why I said we need to know from the accounting office and the town treasurer's office what, let's say as of March 30th, as of the end of March, what is the value of all unpaid vacation time? Because they can calculate it, because they do like, I think they do monthly reports so everybody knows how much time they have. They can put a dollar value to that. We can then look at that dollar value and figure out what kind of money have we got in this budget? What can we do? There may be people that want to take a chance and carry it over, but again, scheduling that vacation, as you mentioned, Dr. Z, is going to be based on operational needs. And somebody taking 4 weeks off in a major department, especially if this virus doesn't go away, I have visions of people not being able to take vacation next year. It's just so, there's so much unknown about it.
So a department has to approve vacation request, so you can manage that. And I think there's special conditions for at least some departments and department heads if they want to go beyond 2 weeks. So I wouldn't be so concerned with that. We can manage that. I wasn't prepared for this, so I didn't look into that calculation. I wish that I had, because then we could have a more robust conversation about it. My thought is, I don't think we can pay I think I have between 3 to 4 weeks right now of vacation on the books. I had some vacation planned for this time, right? It's spring, this is when people go out, and that's not happening, obviously. And so I know that I don't have money in my budget to pay myself out for that time. So I'm wondering, do you want to explore that? We cap the amount of time that can be paid out. Like maybe you can pay out up to 2 weeks time and then you carry over the rest. You can play with that number, but like split it up a little bit so that there's some money paid out and we can handle what I mean, we're mostly through the year. We put that spending freeze on, which was a good thing, but we were already through March. So I know that there's some areas to transfer money from, but I'm not sure if we can do the whole town's vacation, like what everybody has.
Right, and that's why I used that June 30th date, or whatever the last payroll of the year would be, if it were going to happen, because we need to get that number. Let's say at the end of March, we need to know the value of all unused sick leave. We need to know how much money is in the budget that we could use to pay. But the other thing is, we've got to remember, we have money left over in free cash, and we have a special town meeting before the annual town meeting. And it would seem, and if people decide, I definitely want to carry over time, obviously we take that off the calculation, and as long as they understand there's a chance you could lose it. But what I'm saying is, first we find out the number, then we see what's in the budget, and we look at free cash. I don't want to hurt the town. I don't want to hurt employees. It's just that, as we talked earlier about moving the due date for taxes, we don't know what is happening out there. All we know is about our employees who are laid off or not laid off. Those who are unable to, are not part of the essential workforce, they're getting paid. But if their spouse is out, or there are other circumstances going on, and they really could use the money, I think it's a good option. I think I've mentioned this before, one of the reasons why we have already made payments to 7 of the property owners for our complete street sidewalk projects is because that money is needed, all right? And we're gonna have another round of payments as soon as I get those W-9s. And so I also considered that. I'm thinking across the board of town finances and the welfare of our employees.
I also wanted to say to the town administrator, I totally understand that the department head manages their department and thus so can say, okay, we need you here. You can't take a 3-week vacation. Totally understand that. But the situation and the reality is that I think Selectman Goulart raised a good point when she said, if we allow it to roll over, because I think we're all starting from the same place. We're all starting from the place of they are entitled to it. They earned it. That's why they're entitled to it. They should be able to take vacation. We're not going to take anything away. However, you may be in a situation like, for example, where you can't really take a vacation during certain times, like, for example, open enrollment. And so you may get into a situation with certain employees who have to do certain things at certain times of the year by virtue of their job, where they may still not be able to use that rolled over time. And thus they may forfeit it in that way. And so I just want us to consider that. I guess I don't really have a strong opinion either way, as long as we can try our best to ensure that their benefited time will be available to them. I'm okay with it. So there's a lot of different things. I know Chairman Pacheco, you raised a good point about if state aid is down in all this, maybe we don't have enough to pay them out. So there is a lot of different considerations here. And that's why I think Selectman Goulart's point of just simply doing the analysis, getting the figures, I think that's a good place to start, because I think knowing the figures will determine how we're going to proceed on this issue.
Yeah, I think we have consensus. We really can't vote on this particular issue tonight. All right, but we also, I think, have consensus that we need to look a little further. Mr. Ferry, I don't want to put you on the spot, and if you want to say no comment, that's fine. But you've heard some of the discussion. You're a department head. Your department works around the weather. I mean, you got big projects for the summer. You don't want them taking time off in the winter. So that's kind of a tough thing. Do you want to make a comment? And the words no comment, that's fine too. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are a department head.
Yeah, our department in particular is unique. Our employees are reluctant to take vacation during the winter. It's not, we don't not allow it. for obvious reasons, they tend to stay around. And then we have a short window between late spring and early fall where they normally would take vacations. And as we discussed earlier, the Complete Streets program after the spring cleanup, we have a lot of work to do to stay ahead of that. So if we compound that with multiple vacations or prolonged vacations, that's going to be problematic and anticipating getting ready for the following winter.
And if I may just piggyback off that, Mr. Ferry, I guess that was my concern. That's why I made the comments that I did. And then my other concern at that point would be the sort of logistical managerial nightmare of just trying to manage everyone's vacation and how long. And I'm not putting words in your mouth by any means, but just if I were a department head, that would probably be a concern of mine as well. So that's to be expected.
Yep, it's good conversation.
Yeah, so we're at the point now, we don't know how much money is available. So, I mean, we're going in circles now. I agree with Mrs. Goulart. If we have the funds, we should pay them off this fiscal year because we have no idea what next year is going to bring to this town. So should we wait till our will we have the answer for the May 13th meeting, or should we address this on April 28th before we go into executive session?
Well, I have just asked I got emailed the town accountant telling him that I was going to be looking for this information, and I'll speak more about it tomorrow with him. So that I've asked for the vacation number, the number of vacation days for each employee on the books as of April 17th. I just chose Friday.
Yeah.
And then we would have a maximum amount and figure that out. And I'd like him to piece it out by employee so we can, as people decide if they want to be paid out or not. But to Selectman Goulart's point, the unfunded liability, it's a great, excellent point, and I'm happy you brought it up, Selectman Goulart. So we'll do that analysis together. We'll report back. If it's ready for the 28th, I doubt that it will be, but if it is, I'll put it on there. If not, it'll go to a later meeting. And to Selectman Goulart's point, I like the idea of special town meeting. We can transfer different department, money that we may have left over. We'll have a better idea at that point. And we can also put free cash funds from this year into a special article and pay it out that way. So it actually doing this gives us more options and puts us in a better financial safe place with options. And Selectman Goulart, I thank you for that because it's a good place to be in. Gives us lots of options.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
Mr.
you
Chairman,
for the thoughtful discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that on a future agenda, we discuss, I'll call it the FY20 vacation liability. I'll leave it at that. And then under discussion, I'll just add a couple of comments.
Second.
There a second? Discussion?
Discussion. As Mrs. Aaronstein said, we will cost out what it is, so we know what kind of money we're talking about. We'll decide, I think we need to decide whether we will make it optional or make it mandatory relative to the payment, because again, we got to think about managing finances of the town. Like I say, I don't think it's going to be the 28th, because right now that's an executive session. And I think since we're in open session, employees are going to want to know what's happening with this item when it comes up again. I will just mention to you, this wasn't something that I thought of a long time ago. I have been looking at all of these things. As I say, you've all been getting these emails. I had a conversation with the gentleman, Selectman from Wareham today, who was on the same committee as me. And we've had similar discussions, and I'm hearing this from other people. I think Senator Pacheco was the most recent member of the legislature that sent us I'll call it a financial forecast. Did you see that? Did you all get that?
I didn't get that email. I have been.
Well, I can forward it to you, but I got to tell you, again, I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but Representative Haddad and now Senator Pacheco and other people, I told you about the MMA comments, it's just also cautionary. I've never seen this before, quite frankly.
So obviously lottery is down, meals tax is down, and so
Casinos, forget it.
the state does a lot with that. Again, it is not all doom and gloom. It's precarious. It's dangerous. Like I'm worried. I envision we're just driving closer to a cliff. However, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a stabilization of $3.5 billion, I think. That was in that letter. I'll forward that at the end of this meeting just to make sure that you have it. I apologize. I thought you were included on that list. And then we've had that conversation, as you know, with the Finance Committee about what we're going to do with our local aid figures and forecasts. And I will say that I had a positive email conversation with the building inspector today, who has a good turn-in. So I'm happily surprised that there's quite a bit of renovation going on, but it makes sense. You're stuck at home. You're looking at all the home projects you have to do. So that's working out. That's still going. And I've signed up for a webinar on like trying to expedite permitting even in this time. North Andover has increased their revenues by going to this sort of system. So we're trying to do those things too, and really just set us up in a positive way.
Right. And I will just add, yes, Senator Pacheco talked about the 3-point-something billion in the rainy day fund, but the anticipated shortfall in revenue is over $4 billion. And they aren't going to deplete the rainy day fund to try to make up all the lost revenue, because you always have to hold, it's like us with free cash, you always have to hold something. So no, it's not a total disaster. All I'm saying is we've been through tight times before. They weren't like this. They weren't this tight. So so anyhow, that got me thinking that with all those conversations. So that's why I brought this up tonight. It's concerning for everybody.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. New business, discuss exempting emergency responders from the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Madam Administrator, did you want to speak on this, or?
Speak on this, sorry. So I bring this up just to your attention so you can make a decision. The town does have the ability to, let me back up. This Families First Act provides sick leave and benefits for all employees, whoever might be impacted by coronavirus, similar to how we've been, we're still going to pay you regardless of how you're impacted by COVID, but as long, if you're impacted by COVID, you're in pay status still. So this is a federal law that I'm sure you've heard about, but it allows for communities to exempt first responders, and that includes the highway department. And if the town feels that allowing these folks to carry on 14 days of sick leave paid would pose a problem for staffing levels, we can exempt them. A lot of towns have exempted these employees. I had sought some legal counsel about whether or not if it's okay to quote unquote pick and choose which emergency responders, because maybe we don't have the concern in one department but we do in another. I'm just making that up. So you do have the flexibility to exempt, for example, I'm not suggesting this, but exempt fire but not police, or police and not fire, etc. So I'm just bringing this to you. It is your option, and I wanted you to be aware of it. That's all.
May I ask a question, Madam Administrator? Did we get any feedback from any of the department heads of these respective departments that would fall under this, such as highway, police, and fire?
I didn't ask them, quite honestly. I've spoken with the fire chief. We have some good staffing levels there. Police, I wish we had more reserves. We have, knock on wood, been very okay with our staffing levels as it relates to COVID. We haven't had many positives on our workforce, and they certainly didn't get it from working here. So that's all good. We put protective measures in place in order to prevent that, and it looks like it's working. So that's great. I don't really see a need for this. I don't like exempting our, personally, I have a lot of conflict with exempting first responders. I get it. Like, I understand the staffing conflict, but if they're the most likely to get it, why would I exempt them from this? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So,
this actually seems contrary to like how I would like approach this.
I mean,
Those are the people that I would want to be able to have that ability.
it's just that if you allow these folks, so they operate 24/7, obviously, if you allow them to have this 14-day every time, and all of them have it because they've all been infected because it spreads so quickly, we then potentially don't have a police department because everybody's out on sick leave.
Correct.
So that's what I weigh.
Yes. But may I make a point though? My assumption as a selectman who broadly oversees the town would be if that was a concern from a department head, they would have let us know. Do you know what I mean? Like if, for example, the police chief were concerned that this might affect his ability to have staffing, he would have reached out to us. And I'm assuming that's what would have happened. So, you know, you had mentioned that the staffing was sufficient and no one had reached out. So I know why you put it on here. I get it. You should, you know, because it's a decision that needs to be made in either direction. But I would only feel comfortable making this decision if it were coming with some sort of feedback from the individual, the department head running that department. And same if it affected you and, you know, you were running a department, Madam Administrator.
No, I just wanted you to know, it's hard to like pick all of these different things. I just want you to know everything, but I want to do it very orderly so you're not overwhelmed, like sometimes happens to me with all these different emails. But it's a tool that's available to you if you need it. So I don't really have a formal recommendation. Sorry.
Is there a problem if we table this for tonight?
I don't believe so.
I'm going to make a motion to table this with the understanding if the town administrator or a department head feels it necessary, this can appear on a future agenda.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next agenda item is to appoint Joseph Rhines as transfer station attendant. What happened to Tim Rhines?
That should be Timothy. Joe is his nickname. It should be
Yes.
Timothy.
I actually
Yes.
refer to him as Joe as well. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we honor the Board of Health's recommendation to appoint Mr. Timothy Rhines as the permanent transfer station attendant, full-time.
Second?
Permanent.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yeah.
If not, all those,
Contingent on he stops using the name Joe and confusing people.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Next agenda item is to appoint school nurses as temporary public health agents. We have a letter from Todd Pillings, our health agent. As the number of people testing positive for COVID-19 increases, the town nurse, Laurie Damaris, needs additional support to assist her in performing contact tracing. The Board of Health would like the Selectmen to appoint the following people as temporary health officials: Allison Bellera, Denise Wilkins, Allison Alberto, and Kathy Mondor. These appointments will go into effect on April 15th. How can we go retroactive to April 15th?
That's when he was asking for them to be appointed. They are typically going to help with the contact tracing. Sorry. And so they're stepping up to help our town nurse coordinate all of that effort. And I think they started like just assisting.
Oh, they've actually started doing some work? Okay, all right, so that would mean if we appoint them retroactively, that work they were doing before our meeting would be covered as approved, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we appoint Allison Bellora, Denise Wilkins, Allison Alberto, and Kathy Mondor to provide additional support to Laurie Demare, our town nurse, during this COVID-19 emergency.
Second.
And that's effective April 15th, correct?
Yes, effective April 15th.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Vote to approve permits for renewal. We have 4 fuel permits. Reese's Gas Station, NTKL Dayton LLC, Taunton Yacht Club, and Dinesh Patel on County Street to renew their license. I believe they paid all the necessary fees, and Captain Chris Reddy has also inspected everything. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we renew the FP2 permits for the following commercial entities: Reese's Gas Station, 556 Somerset Ave, HTKL Dayton LLC, 1995 Winthrop Street, Taunton Yacht Club, 2125 Water Street, and Dinesh Patel, which I believe is Value Gas, at 1866 County Street.
Second,
For a second.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I should have asked if there was any discussion, I'm sorry.
Is this for like propane? Those little tanks, you know, they have propane.
Oh, I think it's the fuel tank, correct?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Because they all have fuel tanks, yep.
Fuel
Yes.
storage.
Ms. Brady, when will these be available to sign?
There is no signature required. Now it goes on to the town clerk and she issues like a registration card that they keep in their business.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is the Children's Mental Health Week proclamation, and I will read it. Bear with me. Whereas the citizens of Dayton value their health and mental health and that of their families, therefore they are proud to support observances such as Children's Mental Health Week. And whereas 17% of children and youth ages 6 to 17 live with a mental health condition, and 50% of all lifetime instances of mental health begin at age 14, and even some children and youth with the most intense needs, and some who are insured may not receive services. And whereas children and youth with mental health needs in elementary, middle, and high school are more likely to be bullied, absent, suspended, expelled, or fail to graduate. And whereas recognizing the early warning signs of mental health needs and obtaining the necessary support, assistance, and treatment gives children and youth better opportunities to lead full and productive lives at home, in school, and in their communities. And whereas the involvement and partnership of family members in the assessment and treatment of children and youth is essential to positive outcomes. And whereas our nation's future depends on the health and well-being of its families and their children, and whereas Children's Mental Health Week was developed by families of children with emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs to focus on the needs of their children and families and celebrate this year's theme, Vision for Health and Happiness, it is fitting to increase public awareness among all Dayton citizens of this important issue. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, do hereby proclaim May 3rd through the 9th of 2020 as Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I motion that we approve the proclamation as prepared this evening.
Second,
Any discussion?
No, thank
If not-
you. Whoever put this on the agenda, thank you. It's really important and I appreciate it.
I think if it's a town administrator to put it on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Administrator.
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Review the warrant articles. This is going to take a little bit of time. So I assume we're not going through any of the money items since we've already voted on them, correct? So we're going to start with Article 7.
May I ask a procedural question, just in general?
Yeah.
Typically in the past, what we've done is we've not gone over all the articles. We've simply discussed the ones that either we had concerns on or someone raised an issue with. Is that how you want to proceed to save time this evening? It's up to you. I'm happy to do it anyway.
Ahead, you're a step ahead. So tonight we need to review these warrant articles to determine if you agree that all of these articles will go on the posted warrant. Once we have what the posted warrant will be, we send that to council for legal review. We send that to finance committee and the moderator if we had one. And then during another meeting, you go through and you make your votes on recommendations.
Correct.
To the process you're describing. So tonight, it's whether or not you want all of these to be on the warrant.
Yeah, which makes sense. So if someone doesn't want something, I'm just making a
Oh,
statement.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Yes, if a selectman took opposition to something on here, now is the time to bring that up. So I was just trying to save time to say, if we all are sort of copacetic with it as prepared, maybe we can just focus on what we're, not in line with.
If we go to Article 7 on page 11, I think that's where you start. There's some, I'll call them run-of-the-mill. They appear on the warrants every year that we can just skip over. Like Article 7 allows the treasurer to borrow if she has to. 8 is, that's also, let's borrow. The previous one is to sell at public auction. That's a standard one. The next one is the Highway Department's Chapter 90. That's never, all we do is put in the new number every year. The next two relate to projects, and you vote those every year. Article 12 is on there every year. The preservation thing, I think we ought to hold off on that. Article 14 is preservation. So Article 15, that's the library.
Madam Administrator, so I need some clarification. Are we voting to put these articles on the warrant? And we're not giving our opinion as to whether or not we support them? Because what happens when so we vote that it goes on the warrant. When are we going to vote whether or not we support these articles? Because it's going to go to the finance committee, right? They're going to review.
Right.
So I want them to know what our position is on certain articles, especially the money articles, obviously.
Well, if that's the case, then you can either vote. We've established last meeting that you're going to vote. You're going to meet whenever the finance committee meets, so you can share your opinions on them and make votes, because we're going to post those meetings. Or you can set up a regular meeting before they are set to vote on the warrant, which is May 7th, I think. That is before our next regularly scheduled meeting, but because you're going to be posted every time the finance committee meets, you can share that then as well.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add my position as not the chairperson is how you want to do this as the chairman right now is okay with me. I think the way I recall it being done in the past was pretty much whatever was on here, we allowed to be on the warrant. And then when it came time that we needed to make recommendations, just like the finance committee does, that's when we took our various positions, and some articles we didn't. The only article I recall ever being taken off a warrant when it was prepared in draft form on our agenda was like the TA bylaw, and it was taken off originally, and then at a subsequent meeting it was on the agenda, it got approved. But typically we approve them all in terms of it can go on the warrant and then we give our input on it. But this really, I think, is probably up to you in terms of your discretion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Z, and that's why the motions, the articles that I mentioned, the only one that had dollars in it was the Chapter 90. Certainly, we aren't going to refuse putting that on there because that's state money. So what I said was, now we're moving down to whether you start at Article 13 or if you want to move further down. I think we need to look at these, and I guess tonight we could say, yeah, leave it on until we meet with the finance committee, as the town administrator said. That's an option too, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we wait till we meet with the finance committee, are we then going to just individually express our opinions on different warrants, or are we going to say the Board of Selectmen do not recommend, or they do recommend a particular warrant article? So
the latter,
that's my
Mr.
confusion.
Chairman. It's the latter. So basically what we do is The articles are there. Finance committee makes their decision on them all. We make our decisions, and then, you know, either it's a majority vote or a unanimous vote. And then there's 2 lines under the article typically when the warrant gets printed, and one is how finance committee recommends it, and then one is us. So I don't have a strong opinion. If you want to go through tonight and give your opinions, I'm happy to do that. But if you want to wait, I'm happy to. It totally up to you. Sorry, I'm not more help.
No, that's okay. I don't mind the warrants going before the townspeople. They have a right to decide whether or not they want to spend this money. I think we're in difficult times, so our opinion is going to have a lot of weight, as well as the finance committee.
Yes.
And in the past, you know, not too distant past, the Board of Selectmen weren't giving recommendations to the townspeople. And it was something that I supported when I came on board, that we would vote whether or not we support them. And as all the 3 members are aware, sometimes we're unanimous, sometimes it's 2 to 1, sometimes it's 1 to 2. I mean,
or 1 to 1 to 1.
So, and I'm okay with that. We all have our different opinions on the warrants. So I'm okay taking a vote tonight to have all these warrants. Madam Administrator, isn't there one article that will not be going on? The kennel warrant, is that going on the warrant, or did I hear that wasn't going to go on? No?
Kennel bylaw is going on. I think what the confusion is the animal control officer had funding. She had a funding request submitted. So we were supposed to give her one of the police department's one of the cars from the police department. And so the article specifies that vehicle for her to be able to retrofit and letter and paint that specific car. Well, life happened and got in the way. And so now she doesn't have that car. We got her something different. We have to
awesome, by the way.
It does. It is great.
Nice.
Executive Richard. So we have to just reappropriate, and I plan to put that on. I think, what did we decide, Karen? Special town meeting? I can't remember. I think we put it on the special town meeting before the annual, so that we just reappropriate those same funds so she can continue and go ahead lettering the new car. So.
Pretty crafty.
Right. And she's been wonderful with her patients, and I thank her for that. She also she had submitted something early on. It was like $1,600 for operating, something about operating. And I said, well, if it's operating, you got to put it in your budget. It's an operating expense. So that's not there.
But the article,
bylaw will be there.
So the warrant article on kennels is going to be there.
The kennel bylaw?
Yes.
Yes.
That's okay.
So that, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think I get what you're getting at. I think since the language isn't hashed out, that would simply be like Article 15, a placeholder right now, I guess is what I'm assuming.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So we have, because of what's happening, these boards weren't able to meet on time. And we are able to extend, so we have some placeholders here. The CPC's meeting April 30th. The planning board's having their hearings like at the end of May. So we know that the article's going on there. We just work behind the scenes with those boards to get the information.
Understood. Thank you.
It's like a ballet.
Yeah, and for some further clarification, I believe the last time we met with the finance committee, and as a result of their recommendations, we changed some of our recommendations at our next Board of Selectmen meeting. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to. Obviously, we're going to be part of the finance committee meetings. We can state our own opinions on different articles, but we won't actually, as a board, be taking a vote on that until after the finance committee meets. Is that correct?
You can take a vote. If you're posted, you can take a vote.
Is that taking time away from their meeting, though? That would be my concern. So we're basically going to be stopping their meeting for us to take a vote on it at their meeting, which I understand is our meeting also, but I just wondered about the time. Are we really?
Well, and of course, I've never done it digitally like this, so I don't, it's going to be hard to like kind of just be off into the side and have a mini discussion amongst yourselves, but.
Mr. Chairman, from what I remember, it doesn't detract from the finance committee meeting. It doesn't take a lot of time. They're going to discuss it. They're going to ask us what we think. Most of the time, there's consensus. So it's, we're all agreeing, or it's a majority vote. By the same token, it'll be clear if they say yes and we say no, they're going to take a vote and we're going to take a vote. There won't be a big discussion because we already would have had that. But at least going forward, if there is a disagreement on an article, each board will have stated their position. I don't think it's going to take a lot of time. I really don't.
I don't think it'll take that much time either. I do understand your concern, Mr. Chairman, but if you recall, we did have, there was not a consensus with, for example, the creation and the funding of the ADA coordinator position, and the Board of Selectmen took a vote and it was a majority vote. FinCom took a vote and they didn't approve it. We did by majority vote, the Board of Selectmen. And I think that process will be probably, the same, where 99% of the time we're gonna see things similarly, and then on one or two things maybe not. So
you have time. If you would rather do it separately, Mr. Chairman, at our own meeting by ourselves without another board, we have time to do that on May 13th, and that will take place after the finance committee, if they're on schedule, which I believe they will be, has made all of their recommendations. And Karen is the one that inputs that information, and she's very efficient, and she'll be able to update that well before town meeting. So we have options, is my point. If you don't vote during finance committee, you're not beholden to that, and we can upgrade our process.
I just want to reiterate to you, Mr. Chairman, that I'm going to respect however you want to proceed, but I will add this. We all agreed that many years ago, a couple years ago rather, that we really wanted the Board of Selectmen to take a more pivotal role in the budget. It is the Board of Selectmen's budget, and the Finance Committee makes their recommendations on the budget. And so if you see it more pertinent for us to meet first and let the Finance Committee know what we're thinking, I'm totally fine with that. If you want to wait and see how the Finance Committee feels about some of the articles, that's fine too. It's all how you, whatever you feel is the most appropriate for me personally.
Yeah, sure. I'm okay with waiting for the finance committee meeting. I don't want to schedule necessarily another meeting. I tend to think we're going to be on the same page on a lot of these articles. And obviously at the May 13th meeting, some articles aren't monetary, but we can take a position on it at the May 13th meeting ourselves, the Board of Selectmen. So I'm okay with that. As long as you feel comfortable that it's not going to take too much time away from their meeting, I'm okay with that.
Mr. Chairman, I think also when we look at this, there's a group of articles coming up, starting with, let's say, 16. I think those are going to be, for the most part, whether or not there's free cash. So I think a number of these will probably get deferred, but if by any chance we have, I don't even want to say reasonable assurance. What I'm saying is, I think some of these, even at the Finance Committee, are going to be iffy. And so I think it's a good idea to do what you just said and what Dr. Z said in going to the Finance Committee. Yeah, we need to discuss them, but due to the nature of what they are and free cash, they're going to be iffy.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you just a general question, or maybe propose an idea? I do understand that you feel like if the Board of Selectmen hears some sort of contrary thing from the Finance Committee, maybe that will spur a discussion from us, and now we're taking away from their meeting. That's a valid point. Maybe what we could do is, I don't know, schedule a meeting. We'll go to the Finance Committee meetings and then maybe schedule our own meeting after theirs, like a day after or an hour after or something like that. I'm okay with that as well. So we can have a meeting just to discuss the warrant article recommendations from the Board of Selectmen. That's an option too.
And it's probably not going to be a lot of articles, because I think for the most part, we're going to be in agreement and have consensus. But if there are some that are, we don't agree or they don't agree, we'll look at our position again and act accordingly.
Oh, we're already posted for the Finance Committee meeting. So what
That's
we can
that's
do
what
is
Mrs. Aaronstein said.
yeah,
yes.
not adjourn the meeting, and then we can just have
Yeah.
our discussion. Okay, I like that idea.
Okay.
I host them, so I host them on this Zoom stuff. So I get to choose, essentially, I don't get to choose, but I click end the meeting. So I just want to end the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion then to approve these articles for the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the articles for the annual, excuse me, 1 second, for the annual town meeting warrant as prepared this evening. Approve, not recommend.
Approve
Yeah.
placing these articles on the
Placing on the warrant. Excuse me. Mrs. Brady, I'll start from the beginning. I apologize. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the placing of the warrants, articles on the annual town meeting warrant as prepared this evening.
I'm going to second for discussion.
Discussion?
Okay, so I had a little bit of homework from the previous meeting. One was that minimum maintenance bylaw thing about, unaccepted roads. And then I read the other one for the soil board removal, new bylaw for that. I've got quite a bit of data on the minimum maintenance bylaw. And the first thing that was recommended to me by another selectman in another community who's done this was you should have a warrant article to accept the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 6N. That relates to minimum maintenance. If you haven't already accepted it, I sent an email to the clerk and she's going to have that researched so we'll know whether or not the town ever accepted that. And so this selectman said to me, we accepted it, and then we sat down and wrote the bylaw / regulations. So what I'm proposing is that we not put this draft bylaw on here until we get the first question answered. And by hopefully the, not the annual, but the next town meeting, we have a bylaw or regulations that will meet the requirements of Chapter 40, Section 6N as it relates to minimum maintenance. I will also tell you that I got a 75-page report today from the town of, not Westwood, further north, West Ford, that actually has a road, I'll call it road recommendation committee, road acceptance committee, who wrote this report. And evidently they've got unaccepted roads well in excess of what we're dealing with. I've gone through parts of that and I think there's some very good stuff in there. I also have contacted the town of Plymouth because they also have a committee. These communities actually appointed committees to deal with unaccepted roads. I don't have the stuff back from Plymouth, but that's why I'm asking that we not present this bylaw yet, but that if we have not accepted that section of the general laws, we do that first.
Selectman Goulart, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is it not possible, and this is for you, Madam Administrator, as well, is it not possible that I could, depending on the time it would take the clerk to research everything, which I'm sure will not be something quick, it might take a little while, I would imagine, where I could amend my motion to include some sort of language to say that we may need to add an additional article to accept the MGL provision that Selectman Goulart was stating?
I just looked up the language and I feel like when the bylaw is ready, that's when we should make if we haven't already, that's when we should make the motion to accept the provisions. Because if we accept the provisions, we're not really doing it all the way because we don't have a bylaw. It says, cities and towns may by ordinance or bylaw, so we'd be a bylaw, provide for making temporary repairs on private ways. Such ordinance or bylaw shall determine A, the type and extent of repairs, B, if drainage shall be included, C, if repairs, yada, yada. Basically what is written here, you have to give the answer to. So I would just do the first one and then the bylaw at the same meeting. And I have no problem putting them on for the fall or whenever Selectman Goulart's ready to put that on.
Okay,
guess,
and the only reason,
Are you addressing what is your answer to my question though, Madam Administrator? Are we waiting, or can we amend it and have both the articles on there at the same time on a future town meeting? Like, what are we?
The latter is what I'm recommending, that you do these together, like they're married. And so you do them together at whatever public meeting that Selectman Goulart's ready after receiving all of this information. So
You're on the hot seat, Selectman Goulart. Do we think
Okay.
we should take this off?
I don't have a problem with that. The reason that I mentioned, it was the selectman from Wareham who said, this is what we did. He said, if you haven't accepted it, you need to accept that provision. Then you need to, and he talked about bylaw regulations, so forth, so on. It was like a two-step process. I don't have a problem with, on a future town meeting warrant, have vote to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of dun da dun da da, and then another one and have the bylaw right under it. I was thinking of the stormwater thing and how we did that. That was a one-step process, but I don't have a problem with what town administrator is recommending. I was amazed at the stuff that I got. Like I say, I haven't got through that 75-page report yet, but I think that with all of that, once we know whether or not we've accepted it or not, we can come up with some good stuff. Plus, if I get a response from Plymouth, but certainly what West Ford has done is amazing.
So do I need to amend my motion that I just made that was seconded to remove the minimum maintenance bylaw from it?
Well, actually, if I rescind my second and you rescind your motion, a motion can be made to not include this, just not include, strike it from the warrant and move it to a future meeting. That's what I'm thinking.
All right. I'll follow your lead, Selectman Goulart.
All right, I'm going to withdraw my second on the motion.
And I'm going to withdraw my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll entertain a new move. Yes, Madam Administrator?
I have a question. Selectman Goulart had indicated she had also something to say about the soil, loam, sand, and gravel bylaw. And I wanted to also just mention, I never heard back from planning or conservation when we asked them if they would take it on and rewrite it if they felt necessary. And I didn't want this to go by the wayside, so Karen and I made the decision to stick this one on for basically having this discussion.
I'm going to ask that this one be removed also. And the reason is because I went online and I actually found a multi-page on and on about mining, and they broke it down into surface mining and subsurface mining. And surface mining includes everything from soil to you name it. Obviously, subsurface means like if you're going to go for coal and all that other stuff. And it really complies well with bylaws in this town that have been enacted since the soil thing was written, which means you've got to consider stormwater, because the minute you disturb 35,000 square feet, whoop, another bylaw kicks in. Another thing I liked about this document that I came up with, they have a requirement that soil removal is considered like either strip mining or open pit mining. And everything going forward that I have experienced, even up in the Northwest Territories where they mine diamonds by pit mines, there is a requirement now that from an ecology standpoint, when the mining is complete, the property has to be returned to its near original or best condition possible. So you can't leave holes, you can't fill it in with junk, but the whole point is that you return the land to a somewhat usable state. Years ago, when people took soil, we've had a few examples in Dayton where the topsoil was removed and a pit was left. There is a large housing development in Lakeville where they built some beautiful homes and a golf course along Route 79. All those homes are built in a pit. Now, in this day and age, you couldn't do all that. You would have to return that land somewhere close to grade. You can mine the soil, you can take loam and with all those regulations. But when I started reading this, I thought, wow, we have to consider existing bylaws. We have to think about DEP, EPA. And so I thought, this is another one of those things that we're going to have to do some looking at and reading and picking out the best part to make the most effective bylaw in the town of Dayton that's going to be around for years to come. And right now, we don't have a whole bunch of people lined up looking for permits. So I think we have time to do it. And again, this would be for a future town meeting, and it will be based on these documents that I found. I was really surprised.
So my position on this is I actually support this article. The reason I support this bylaw is because my understanding, and please correct me if I'm not correct in my understanding, Madam Administrator, the adopted regulations that kind of govern the removal and the mining, that's still on the books. All this does is change who the authority is in terms of issuing any potential permits. In terms of the actual how mining removal of soil is regulated, that's still trucking along. It's just who would have a potential hearing if a violation were to occur. And I feel very strongly, as not a soil expert, that it should be the Conservation Commission. And the reason is because Selectman Goulart at the Soil Conservation Commission meetings made good points. There was an owner who had cease and desist orders issued by other authorities. And unfortunately, the Soil Conservation Committee didn't have, because we are not those cease and desist granting authorities, I guess granting is a bad word, but we don't issue those. We were not able to do anything about them, and we were not able to consider those when we were making decisions on the actual soil removal permit. What I like about having the Conservation Commission be the authority now is that you're allowing a synchronicity between the different cease and desist and regulatory authority of the Conservation Commission. If the Conservation Commission had been having that soil board hearing, my understanding is they would have been able to raise other potential issues with other cease and desist orders on that same property and tie them together. And so I think that's a benefit if they can do that. And so I support the bylaw. My understanding and my hope would be if the bylaw were to be adopted, that would then prompt the Conservation Commission, to Selectman Goulart's point, to review the regulations that are on the books from the 1980s and revamp them. Am I correct?
The problem with this bylaw change is not per se the new authority. The problem is the new authority, and quite frankly, the existing authority does not have the authority to issue, establish and periodically revise general rules, regulations, and so forth and so on, because when this was written originally, there was no stormwater bylaw. The minute somebody disturbs more than 35,000 square feet, whether they're scraping the dirt or cutting down trees and brush, automatically the stormwater bylaw kicks in. And that bylaw supersedes everything else. I mean, that was part of the discussion in the letter that the Stormwater Committee sent to the zoning board when we were talking about the new proposed housing development, because initially the housing developer said that nothing applied, and what the information that came from the EPA was, oh yes it does. So that's why stormwater is going to act in an advisory capacity to zoning. So what I'm saying is, if conservation becomes the authority under this amended bylaw, it isn't going to happen, because it all would conflict automatically with the stormwater bylaw, which was written many, many years later. So that's what I'm saying. Right now, the way it's written, we don't have any people at the door looking for new permits. Everything is the way it is. Yes, currently there are conflicts with a number of boards. And yes, there are cease and desist. But right now, everything is, I'll say, quiet. Now that I've found all this stuff, I think we have a chance to make it right. So in the future, whoever is decided to be the board, commission, the authority to act on this will have a solid bylaw behind them that isn't going to conflict with stormwater or DEP or EPA. So that's the only reason I'm bringing this up.
I'm a little perplexed by that. The only reason is because my understanding is that it doesn't make sense for us to go back and review the regulations and then hand off the new regulations to someone else. To me, it makes more sense to establish the new authority. I'm surprised that wasn't my dog. My dog is usually out.
I couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah. You were looking around the house. Is it mine? My understanding, though, and I guess what makes more sense to me is to have whoever is going to be the new authority, they review the regulations and they determine what is best. To me, it doesn't make sense for us to do it and then say, hey, here you go. And now that new committee is bound by everything that we decided. So if that's the case, we might as well just stay the Soil Conservation Commission.
Oh, no, and I'm not proposing that at all. All I'm saying is right now, things are calm, okay? There aren't people looking for permits to do this, but in this new bylaw that will be in effect, there will be somebody meaning committee, board, or whatever, that will have the authority to act under this bylaw, and this bylaw is going to comply with stormwater and everything else, so there will not be these conflicts. And if there is a violation, you won't have different boards issuing cease and desist orders in all directions. There would be one authority. Who that authority will be will have to be determined, but I really think, based on what I've seen so far, there has to be something. Not only does that 35,000 square feet, that's a big red flag. I mean, no matter what happens in this town, that's the trigger. And then the other thing is, we have no provision at all, and we are a green community, and we are responsible, let's say, for ecology and all of that stuff, all of that good stuff, quite frankly, that there has to be some kind of provision that there is restoration, and it's not just left whatever. Right now,
but
we
that
don't.
provision, Selectman Goulart, would be delineated in the regulations that the new authority would come up. And the other point I wanted to make is nothing in this language of the bylaw trounces or trumps or prohibits the Stormwater Committee from its duly, what it is entitled to have jurisdiction over. So if you look at the original bylaw from back, 1980 or whenever the original soil conservation was, this is a little bit longer, but there's nothing, the language is very similar.
I just have a question.
No, we're already in conflict. Stormwater Committee is already in conflict. So that's why I looked at this and said, we gotta straighten this out.
That was my question. So are you saying that how it's currently set up, which is where the 3 members of the Board of Selectmen are on this board and, putting aside the changes, that the stormwater bylaw is in conflict with the soil conservation board bylaw already? Is that what you're saying?
Just the opposite. When the original soil bylaw was written, there was no stormwater thing. We didn't deal with that. Lo and behold, we've got stormwater now, we've got bylaws, we got regulations, we got MS4s, we got all of that enforcement stuff. Now, the original bylaw as written is in conflict with the stormwater bylaw and all of the powers and duties that are incumbent in that bylaw and those regulations. And the thing is, you got oversight by the EPA. And that's why when this came down the pike, I looked at it and I said, this doesn't solve the problem. I think it's fine to have an article, a bylaw that relates to somebody have an oversight of this type of mining. That's not a problem. It's just that when you look at this and saying the Concom will have the authority, I'm saying, no, they don't. They will not have, this bylaw will not trump, sorry for that word, will not supersede what is already in the stormwater bylaw. The stormwater thing is the latest. It's the EPA thing. It's the DEP thing. And therefore,
why does the language matter?
we need to bring it together. I'm sorry?
If this bylaw will, and it shouldn't ever trump anything, you know, regarding authority to the Stormwater Committee, then why does the language matter? If they already have their authority, then this isn't in conflict because they retain their authority. So I'm just confused what
No. What I'm saying to you is the ultimate authority in this town relative to soil, stormwater, all of the stuff that goes under that. The ultimate authority is the Stormwater Committee. Therefore, another board or commission or however it's set up, if they have control over a certain thing, it cannot conflict with language in the stormwater bylaw and or regulations. Now, I don't know of anybody else that has the rule about disturbing 35,000 square feet. As I say, that's the red flag. And now the Conservation Commission has rules under the Clean Water Act and other things that certainly no other authority in town would conflict with. So all I'm saying is, when we present to the townspeople the will you call it new or revised soil removal or mining bylaw, everything fits and everything is going to come in. The other thing too is, sitting on the Stormwater Committee, you've got the chairman of the Conservation Commission. You've got the building commissioner, you've got, you know who's on there. Those are all departments that in one way or another, the health inspector would have some relationship to the obviously the stormwater bylaw, but also what their own boards and committees do. So we all sort of work together to make sure we're not in conflict with any of the other boards. And all I'm saying is, we're going to do this, come up with a revised bylaw. Let's make sure everything fits.
I think what needs to fit is the regulations. I think that's what needs to be redone. I've not heard anything. I think what it sounds like, and I know you didn't say this expressly, but what it sounds like you're saying is maybe it's a good idea for the Stormwater Committee to be involved or to be the granting authority.
No, absolutely.
So can I ask you this? So what would resolve this potential conflict? I don't see the conflict. Stormwater has their authority. The soil removal authority would have that authority. They could talk to each other, right? And now there's a continuity because the conservation chairman would be on the, we would have someone from conservation represented on the stormwater committee. I like that continuity. I don't see what the conflict is.
And anybody that would fall under it, sorry to cut you off, but anybody that would fall under it, any applicant would basically they'd be beholden to conservation, in this case, Conservation Commission for the soil removal stuff. And they would, part of the decision and the permitting process would be, you must see the Stormwater Committee. I have not read this in its entirety, and I just have my bylaws with me, and it says post-development, that it really only focuses on post-development. And I just have questions about where the conflict has arisen and why it's arisen. If the stormwater bylaw was written after the soil one, I guess I'm wondering, like, why, when it was first put in, didn't we as a town collectively, not one person, but like notice that there was a conflict? I don't know. I feel like we can still go forward. The proposed soil conservation bylaw is simple enough and relies heavily on the regulations drafted enough that we can incorporate stormwater management. And we've, as a community, really put stormwater front and foremost. Selectman Goulart, you're responsible for a lot of that, but we've adopted that in a lot of our different planning stages. So I don't think that it would be kind of put to the wayside in any way by updating this bylaw. I think we are all very much committed to managing
And
stormwater.
I just wanted to add and I've been on the Soil Conservation Commission for 4 years, and there's never been a conflict that I can recollect between the Stormwater Committee. There was the issue where there were, as I mentioned before, a cease and desist issued by other entities, and unfortunately, you know, we were not able to consider that when doing the permit. Maybe the next granting authority could rethink that.
To take this a little further, I would suggest a two-step process. Number one, develop a soil removal or mining bylaw, number one. Then separately develop the regulations that go with that bylaw, just like we did with stormwater. And when you think about order of operations, all right, you have the bylaw, you have the regulations, just like, so that's mining, soil, and that's what we have with stormwater. In the regulations, it pretty much gives you the instructions of what you have to do to comply. That would be similar to what you would have in the soil bylaw. And then it would also indicate, let's say, steps, because in the process of applying for a permit for soil removal, there would have to be checklists, like if you have other boards, or if you've got to clear with conservation because there might be wetlands near where you're going to be mining, you would have all of these checklists of, yep, that board applies, nope, this one doesn't apply, so forth and so on. And in that, there would be on that list, Stormwater Committee.
Yes.
If it applied, they would do their part, and it would move on to the next. So that's what I'm saying about how we do it, how we would do this.
I actually agree with you. That's actually how we're trying to do it tonight. We have the bylaw. We have the bylaw, right?
Yep.
Now we'll have the new granting authority who will review the regulations and make the changes.
These regulations are not sufficient. They don't go into enough detail, not from what I saw from the research I've done. I think there is more that needs to be done.
Not the regulations.
Well, again, the bylaw. If you do the bylaw, which is the broad description, the meat is in the regulations, because that's where enforcement comes. So whoever you nominate or appoint to do it goes back to the regs. That's how we do stormwater.
Exactly, and I'll actually go a step further. I agree with you 100%, and that's exactly what we're trying to do tonight, where we will propose the new authority, voters will vote on it at the town meeting, and then if it's approved, the new authority will go through the regulations. My personal hope would be that that language that you're talking about, Selectman Goulart, of please see the Stormwater Committee or please see the board, that should be in there. I agree with you 100%. My position is, the reason I support the bylaw is because we, meaning the current Soil Conservation Commission, I feel very strongly should not be the people doing the regulations. We create the bylaw, the new authority is created, they review the regulations, hopefully with the pertinent committees and subcommittees, Board of Health, Planning, Zoning, Stormwater. That's what's going to provide synchronicity between the different authorities in terms of soil removal.
No, this authority does not do, the authority does not do that. The applicant does that. These are the steps the applicant takes, right? As a matter of, we have a similar checklist now, for example, solar farms. And an applicant would say, I would like to get a permit to remove soil, and you spell it all out. And they said, okay, you need to check with conservation, because if there are any wetlands near there, you do that. You need to check with stormwater, you got to follow that. And any other appropriate boards or commissions. The applicant would then come back to the granting authority, I'll call them, and say, okay, I've done all of these. Everyone that needs to has signed off. I'm ready to pay my permit fee. And then the granting authority would check it, and I would assume grant the permit.
Correct. Okay. No, I totally agree, Selectman Goulart. What I'm saying is that process potentially would be outlined in the new regulations created by the new granting authority. They would say, okay, before we will grant you a permit for soil removal. Here's what you need to do, and here's who you need to see. I feel like actually what we're saying is the same thing.
Okay. We've had a lot of discussion on this. So I will entertain a motion regarding warrant article 28, which is the
27.
removal of the soil.
27.
27. Mr. Chairman, it's 27.
28 is the minimum maintenance bylaw. Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we.
Oh, wait a minute, excuse me.
Mhm.
We got a motion because I did it for discussion.
No,
Oh, yes,
I don't think
for
we.
all- No, hold on. Actually, Selectman Goulart is right. It's for all the articles, as I understand, correct?
No,
Minus the minimum maintenance bylaw.
no. There were two
Can I have
articles that I questioned.
Can I
That's
have
all
a point of clarification? Can I have a point of clarification? The warrant list that we had printed for the last meeting has changed. The numbers are different. So I'm trying to save paper. My own paper. I used the warrants that we had at the last meeting. So you're saying it's Article 27, is that correct?
The Soil Conservation Board question is Article 27.
On tonight's
Okay.
agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So do we have a motion before us? I didn't think we had a motion. I
The
thought we were
motion-
discussing.
There's a motion on the floor to put all of the articles on the town meeting warrant. Selectman Goulart raised questions on two of them, which is the minimum maintenance bylaw, which you've, I think, agreed to remove,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
soil conservation.
yeah, I thought she rescinded her second. I thought she seconded, and I thought Brett had rescinded his motion. Is that
Yes.
correct? So we,
Yes,
And then I believe I made a new, I thought I made a new motion and said all articles except for the minimum maintenance bylaw. I could be wrong. I apologize.
No, when I withdrew my second and you withdrew your motion, that was Article 28. And then we voted on, we had a new motion on 28 and we acted on that. And then I brought up 27.
Did you make a motion pursuant to Article 27?
Mrs. Brady, did I make a motion? It's been so.
I don't have one for Article 27.
Yeah, I
Okay.
thought it was just a
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion for Article 27.
Mr. Chairman, I'm motion that we approve the addition of Article 27 to the annual town meeting warrant as prepared this evening.
Is there a second? I will step down and second that motion. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay,
Abstain? The ayes have it. So Article 27 will remain on the warrants. So I will entertain a motion for all the rest of the articles to put them on the warrant.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the addition of all remaining articles to the annual town meeting warrant except for Article 28.
Is there a second?
oh, we already took care of 28.
Did we? I didn't think we made a vote to remove it.
I didn't think we would remove
Not
it either.
yet.
Mm-mm.
Not yet.
Oh, we really went down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Sucked into the vortex.
I don't have my gavel.
And all the soil fell on top of it.
Yeah. Buried alive.
So, Dr. Z, want to repeat your motion again then?
Yes,
Please.
my motion was to approve the addition of all articles to the annual town meeting warrant except for Article 28. By the way, this is one of the shortest annual town meeting warrants I have ever seen, so kudos.
Is there a second on that motion? I will step down and second that motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, the reason I didn't second it is because he said all of them. I got a question on 29.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Selectman Goulart. Discussion.
Well, no. I can't bring up my question on 29 because you said all of them.
I will rescind my motion. Excuse me, if you will rescind your second, Mr. Chairman, I'll rescind my motion.
I will rescind my second.
I'll rescind my motion. Sorry,
Okay.
Selectman Goulart.
A quick, just clarification, the Capital Outlay Committee. This is to establish the committee. What is the committee we've already got in existence?
So I actually worked on this with Robert Rendon a while ago, like 2 years. I feel like I've been here forever. 2 years ago, I worked with him on this, and we came to agreement on changing this. Right now, the Capital Outlay Committee are 3 people, 3 seats, and only one is filled. It's Robert Rendon. So we haven't had any other volunteers to that committee. And so at the time I sat down and I asked Robert if he would meet with me and hear me out on how I think a capital outlay could go, where they would meet every year. And they would basically, so Tom Ferry is great about this, where he'll understand he might not be getting a large item, but he'll put it in anyway as a warrant item request so that it's in the pipeline. I've used air quotes so much tonight, I'm sorry. So that it's in the queue for people to understand, hey, be aware, we're gonna have to make this large purchase eventually. I don't really need it now, I want it, but it can wait. And so my idea is to get these major players who would be the treasurer, the accountant, the finance committee, a select few of them all together every year during the budget process and have a capital plan. That would be a 5-year plan or so. And then they would also make recommendations on whether or not to pay for those items through free cash, borrow, or raise and appropriate. And they would serve as a recommending committee to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee.
So my question is, do we need a capital outlay committee and a capital planning committee? Should we eliminate the one that doesn't seem to have only one person filling it?
So I'm sorry, my intent is to expand what exists into what I've written here. And if the language is wrong, I'll fix it. I thought it was correct. We already have to change that beginning part. I just made a note of that before you started speaking, Selectman Goulart. So,
because my thought is, if it's 2 committees and the main committee is capital outlay, then capital planning has got to be a subcommittee of capital outlay. But if it's simply changing the name and then expanding the duties, I don't have a problem with it. I just couldn't figure out how many committees we were having.
So that's my mistake. Section 2 should say the capital outlay committee shall study such and such, such and such. And what it does is it expands membership on this. It takes this 3-person and expands it so that it's more decision-making of people who have municipal finance backgrounds and understand the town's finances inherently because they work on them.
So on section 2, should it say the capital outlay committee shall?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just couldn't figure out how many committees we had.
Look at the loop, it's a typo.
My thought was, if we got a committee of 3 and only have 1, how are we gonna fill?
How would we do a subcommittee? Split that one person up into 6.
We'll have to stop cars on the street and pull people in. Okay, that was my only, I think that was my only question on the rest of it. So Dr. Z, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, are you entertaining
Yes.
motion, sir? I entertain a
Yes,
motion.
I am.
I entertain a motion that we approve all articles to be added to the annual town meeting warrant, except for Article 28.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Selectmen's reports. Board of Selectmen's quarterly update on 5-year plans. Has everybody prepared their reports?
I have an oral report, not a written report.
Yep.
Okay, I'll do mine first. Mine's written, so let me get mine out of the way. Say goodbye.
No, we left him.
The mascot.
Okay, my 5-year plan is just dated April 22nd. I have 2 items. The first one is the new library. We are still on the waiting list for the renovations of our Andrew Carnegie Public Library. We are number 14 on the list. The library trustees have created a strategic planning committee. And I am a member of this committee. Our work has slowed because of the pandemic. Myself and our library director, Jocelyn Tavares, will participate in a Zoom meeting on April 28th with the Massachusetts Board of Library Construction to get an update on library projects. I think a lot is up in the air given the state's present situation. Just an update on the library itself. The library is closed, but they are still providing services. They have a lot of digital resources that are available for people to use at home for all ages and interests. The website has been updated. Hopefully it is easier to use and find the resources that may interest you. The kids and teen pages are also updated and have new resources on them. For streaming services, they offer Acorn TV. I highly recommend this station if you like TV shows. My wife and I, we watch this all the time.
Do they
That's
offer
British
BritBox, Mr. Chairman?
What's
Do they
please?
offer BritBox or just Acorn?
I believe they also have BritBox, but I'm not positive on that. We have Acorn. We don't have BritBox. BritBox, the shows, they come out with the shows a little earlier than Acorn.
Okay.
But anyway, Acorn has plenty of shows.
Fabulous.
They have Freak Out, which is music. They have great courses, online classes. Hoopla, which is TV, movies, music, ebooks, and audiobooks. IndieFlex, independent film. Stingray, Quello, concerts and music documentaries. Reading, they have Overdrive / Libby, New York Times, Consumer Reports, RB Digital Magazine, Hoopla, Tumble Books, Romance Books Cloud, and Audiobooks Cloud. Hobbies, Creative Bug, Universal Class, 4 online classes, great courses, A to Z. Will, Food, A to Z, Food America. They have been trying to keep communications up through their Facebook pages, the main library, and the Dayton Youth page. The website is DaytonLibrary.org, which you can access all the digital resources. They have been sending more frequent newsletters. Miss Laurie has, I'm not sure if anybody has seen this, but I've seen it. Miss Laurie has been posting story time on the Dayton Youth Facebook page. Our library director, Jocelyn Tavares, is hosting author Steve Manchester this Thursday, which is tomorrow at 6:30 on Zoom. Registration is required. People can contact Jocelyn at jtavares, Tavares, at salesinc.org or find the info on their website. My second concern plan for the 5-year plan for the town is making town buildings ADA compliant. We addressed a little bit earlier with Madam Administrator regarding the ADA grant. In December, Dayton was awarded a $30,000 ADA self-evaluation and transition plan grant from the Office of Disabilities to assist the town in removing barriers and improving the accessibility to all of our town buildings. This grant provides funds to pay a consultant to review all of our town buildings and provide us with a blueprint to move forward with these recommended improvements. In January, the Board of Selectmen awarded the contract to KMA Architecture and Accessibility. They have done a lot of work already. They have sent a survey to all department heads, which is due May 1st. Their final report is due June 30th. These plans will not happen overnight, but will be part of a 5-year plan. Again, I would like to thank Jonathan Gale, our ADA coordinator, and Town Administrator Mallory Aristine for all their help in getting the grant. That's my report. Who wants to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted to add one thing under library services. I did not know you could renew your library card digitally, so that is super important. Don't let it lapse. That is your sort of passport to the digital services that, quite frankly, are keeping me busy and productive during the quarantine. So thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. And I will check out the Acorn.
Also, so Jocelyn kind of forecasting that we had these troubling times coming at us. She ended up putting in place different, so in my community, for example, if I borrow on Hoopla, I'm limited to 4 books. She expanded it to 4 books a month. She expanded it to 10. And I just want to recognize her for thinking ahead and really understanding that there would be this ability to increase usage. So I just wanted everyone to know that.
And for anyone wondering why that matters, that really is super important because sometimes you can't determine when you hold a book, when you're going to get it. So if you're reading something else and you're really into it, you may lose the book that you just got off hold if they only allow a certain. So that is, thank you. I'm learning a lot of important information from the library tonight.
Problems.
So I will go. I will be brief. and then I will be seated, as Franklin Delano Roosevelt taught us. Basically,
You weren't even born then.
basically, the building commissioner is plugging along on the cable committee studio. He already had finished the old zoning board meeting room, and we are waiting for the funds, hopefully, to be approved at annual town meeting so that he can proceed with the next phase, which is the partitioning of space, moving accounting downstairs, fixing the planning board office, and then partitioning sewer into zoning, planning, and sewer. So zoning and planning will have a space, and then sewer will have a space, and then putting doors off of the hallway so there's a direct entrance. So that obviously is contingent upon funds, but as I said, he is working on the studio for cable, which is really important because, as you know, they have become super critical for things like alerts and just different news feeds on Channel 9. The other thing is regarding the sewer expansion. The town administrator and I had a meeting with some important stakeholders, including our highway superintendent. And Madam Administrator, they were consultants, right?
They're our firm, our engineering firm.
They were fabulous. So it was a really productive meeting. And what we were discussing is, A, the results of the study. And it was a lengthy study. So there was a lot to discuss. And then we were discussing the different phases of the project. And then we, I guess, sort of tentatively decided that what we wanted to do, because this would be a big investment and it would be really important in terms of spurring economic growth in town to extend sewer down Route 138. We sort of decided that what we wanted to do was sort of get our ducks in a row before we bring anything to a town meeting. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of questions that will be asked at a town meeting before this gets approved, and rightfully so. And so I think we need to, in terms of just salesmanship, and when I say salesmanship, I don't mean used car salesman, I mean having people in town understand why this investment is important and how it matters to them and how it could potentially make the future a little bit better economically for them. That type of salesmanship will be a big haul. And so we need to have all of our facts and all of our data in a row, basically. And so my suggestion was, let's do a little bit more due diligence. And the town administrator definitely agreed. And we just have a little bit more work to do before we're prepared, especially during a pandemic, to bring anything to a town meeting. So we're just in the research phase, and we just want to make everything dot our I's and cross our T's before we bring anything, so that we're able to answer all the questions that should rightfully come to us. So, and Madam Administrator, is there anything that you wanted to add about that I may have missed?
Nope.
I was being vague because I don't, so much is in the air right now that I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of specifically what was discussed.
So we're going to do some analysis based upon properties, residential versus business. And then how I see it is a PowerPoint presentation delivered in conjunction with the sewer commission to you and the public, so that they can sort of wrap their minds around this project, pros and cons, economic benefits. What does it mean? What does it mean in dollars and cents to the average person? So we want to have all of that information and try to anticipate those questions so we can tell them exactly what the project is, what it will hopefully, or what it will, not hopefully, but what it will likely deliver based upon these numbers and based upon the analysis, and then go from there. We did, during our last meeting, get some further figures and updates from that firm. They've been wonderful at Woodard and Curran, and we've had great success with them. So it's been moving right along. And again, that's set to finish up at the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you, Dr. Mallory.
Madam
Mrs.
Administrator, I had a question on that study. Are we all set with the city of Taunton for capacity?
Yes, even with this additional, if this went through, yes. And we also asked them to give us kind of a what if scenario, get a what if scenario about the development projects we have, I guess, in the wings.
Yeah,
the Other Fields one. and then the one up on Forest Hills that may happen. So
Okay.
we tried to really give us a 10-year timeline of what our community would look like and if it could hold the capacity, and it could.
Very good. So the street department and fire department and the town per se joint 5-year plan priority is the fuel station. And because of the virus, the DEP meeting has been delayed. So that town project is, again, we need to get a meeting scheduled when it's safe to do so. As far as the actual items left on the list for the street department and the fire department, there are articles on the annual town meeting warrant that are for some of the items that are on the 5-year list for each of those departments. The fire chief is now looking at acquiring a used ladder truck for a substantially smaller amount of money than a brand new one. So he's kind of refocused on that. Highway department, again, has several vehicles and equipment on the town meeting warrant. Depending upon what happens at the finance committee meeting and whether or not all of these articles are going to be recommended or if any of them are deferred, will tell us what the status of those two department lists are going forward. So we're kind of in a holding pattern at this point. Now, both of the departments have spoken of facilities, and my last conversation or email discussions with the fire chief were that instead of trying to add on, renovate Station 1 on Main Street, they should be considering the possibility of a complete new fire station located in a more central area of town, possibly the William Street area. So that's a new consideration that could be discussed going forward. And as far as the highway department goes, we've talked about building a facility at the transfer station and relocating the highway department to Tremont Street, making the property on County Street available for sale and hopefully development. So those are all still potentially there. So the next big event relative to my two departments will be whether or not any or all, some or none of their requests are funded at the annual town meeting. Under Selectmen's report, Mr. Chairman, I did want to mention one thing. On the warrant, Article 37 relates to accepting Miller's Lane as it's currently laid out, and it says placeholder. And Mrs. Aaronstein has been copied on all of the communications that have been going back and forth amongst Mr. Ferry, Mr. Roy Delano, and me relative to Miller's Lane. It has been reviewed by Attorney Gay. Attorney Costa was copied, but I think he's working on something else. But anyhow, the last information from Attorney Gay was that what I had proposed, he said, sounds like a plan. So I have contacted Mr. Rhines and Mrs. Easterday, and that public hearing that will be held will also include discussion of Miller's Lane, because you need a public hearing in order to accept it. But everything looks very good. We have the plans. We have initial town council approval. Planning board is going to look at it. So I think this will be presented at town meeting for acceptance. And from everything I can see right now, it's a definite, it should be a definite vote, because it would take care of that entire lane from the Swansea line all the way to where it connects to Anderson Drive. So we're feeling good about that.
I wanted to add one thing under Selectmen's reports, Mr. Chairman, not part of my five-year plan. Office manager of the zoning board and I, Jonathan Gray, we had the Serpide Rural Caucus kickoff meeting yesterday, and primarily what we ended up discussing was how, you know, the impacts that the pandemic has had on just town, our operation, our residents. And then we also got into how it's impacting our farmers, how it's impacting agriculture, how it could impact things like farm stands. I was at Under the Sun Farms today. I was so happy. I think everyone heard you at our last meeting, Mr. Chairman, where you advised everyone to wear a mask, because everyone was. And it was just, it was a nice discussion to have. And the whole point of it is that we're now going to take a survey as caucus members, where we want to let the state know how or what we find are potential concerns in terms of the rural policy plan, which the Commonwealth has set forth, and different changes we might like to see in that due to things, you know, a result of the pandemic. So it was a really nice discussion, really thoughtful, and I just wanted to thank everyone for letting me be part of it. It was really good. Also, I wanted to point out that we are very lucky to have someone with an agricultural background like Jonathan Gray on the caucus, because he brings an expertise that I just frankly do not have, and a perspective that I don't have. And it was really a breath of fresh air to see him really pick up the ball and run with it. So I just wanted to thank everyone for letting us be part of it, and I'll continue to report to you.
Thank you, and thank everybody for their selectmen reports. There are no correspondence or acknowledgements.
Well, Mr.
Minutes.
Chairman, I do
Yes.
have acknowledgements. First of all, I want to commend all town employees, and I include in that all school department employees, for what they're doing to keep this town going. I know when you drive by, sometimes it looks like there aren't many people around, but to the residents, rest assured, this town is functioning and people are doing their best to educate children and provide all the services. So kudos to everybody that's doing their part. I also want to mention, a special thank you to the volunteers that continue to staff the 2 food pantries each month. They have one behind town, the lower level of town hall, and also the special one that they've been having at Lincoln Village, so that to accommodate them within the confines of the virus. And one last comment, people have said to me, what are those signs about Medal of Honor? To those people that have seen them and aren't sure, that is the recognition that we have in this town. An individual, Mr. Frederick Anderson, who is interred and who actually received the Medal of Honor for his service in the Civil War, and thanks to Mr. Ferry and his department for getting those signs.
Thank you for that. Minutes. I'll entertain a motion to accept for review the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting of March 18th and April 8th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes of the regular budget meeting of March 11, 2020, the Selectmen's emergency meeting of March 16, 2020, and the Board of Selectmen's emergency meeting on March 19, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Ms. Brady, has there been any changes in those minutes since I received those at the last meeting?
No, there has not.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants be approved. Dated April 15th. Warrant 42A-20 in the amount of $91,079.40 payroll. Warrant 42B-20 in the amount of $101,422.36, and 42C-20 in the amount of $11,125, first being payroll and the last 2 being accounts payable.
Second.
Just for further clarification, we voted a little while ago that I would sign the warrants versus everybody having to go in and sign the warrants. So I've been doing that and will continue to do that. I see that I got warrants today, which I haven't signed yet, but they'll be sent out tomorrow morning. So I just want everybody to know that the warrants have been signed. There's no need for anybody else to sign the warrants.
I had to come in yesterday to pick something up, so I did sign some documents, but only because, you know, I had to go. I had a mask and everything, and I was quick, so.
And I'm guilty too, because there were some things that needed signing, and I just figured if I sign them, someone else doesn't have to. Not to take away from anybody, but like Dr. Z, I'm guilty.
I used to work for the court system, so when you say guilty, you should be coming up with some kind of a All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the warrants dated April 22nd. Warrant 43A-20 in the amount of $96,278.36 payroll, and 43B-20 the amount of $71,568.83 accounts payable.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Good night.
everyone. Have a good
Stay
night.
safe.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Night.
Bye, Mrs. Brady.
Good night.
Take care. Have a good night.
I thought he was sleeping, Mr.